My first act was in my younger years. I grew up with cancer in my family. Almost every aunt and uncle on both sides of my family had cancer, even cousins that were a little bit older than me, women with breast cancer. I grew up fearing and knowing that this was most likely my fate as well. I tried to comfort my mom and my dad when they lost their brothers and sisters to cancer, never knowing that it would soon be me. Fast forward to my mid-30s. My mom got breast cancer and passed away at age 78. She had a good long life though, that was encouraging. Not many people in our family had made it to age 78. I was hopeful that maybe cancer had not affected our family after all. Shortly afterwards, my 43-year-old sister Alice, she was 11 years older than me, was diagnosed with ovarian cancer in a late stage. They gave her 3 months to live. She actually lasted 13 months. She had been perfectly healthy with no warning symptoms at all. Alice and I spent as much time together as we could in her last months. We shared stories, we cried with each other, we prayed with each other. She was 54 when she passed away. Alice was my best friend and my role model. My mom's and my sister's deaths, both from cancer, shook me to the core and made me fear cancer again. When my sister had been in treatment, I asked her, doctors, also at Cancer Treatment Center of Americas in Chicago, a lot of questions about cancer. They encouraged me to contact a university to enroll our family in a hereditary study. They needed a sample of blood from a living relative who had cancer, so just prior to passing, my sister absolutely was on board. She gave a vial of her blood. The researchers then did find a genetic cell mutation called BRCA1, which for short we call BRCA1. My second act started at that very moment, which I refer to as my fighting stage. Fear was no longer an option for me. With a positive BRCA1 genetic mutation in our family, we learned that each of my family members had a 50% chance of inheriting the same mutation, males and females. Being positive for the BRCA1 gene increases my risk of breast cancer up to 80% and my risk of ovarian cancer up to 40% in my lifetime, with a strong possibility of more than one cancers. This was long before the actress Angelina Jolie found out the same news. At that time, very few people were aware of this risk and what it meant. I decided absolutely to have my blood tested. I wanted to know what the future held. I tested positive for the BRCA1 mutation. I also learned that I could choose to have preventative surgeries to decrease these risks. My doctor recommended that I start with a oophorectomy. That means my ovaries and my fallopian tubes had to go. Then later, worry about the preventative breast surgery. I remember finding the courage to tell my family and friends. Some were receptive and some were not. Some were horrified that I would consider at that time such drastic surgery. But some, my warrior friends, supported me wholeheartedly. I was not and never have been a fan of self-mutilation, but I wanted to live to see my kids grow up. I wanted to show my family that we finally had opportunities and we could survive, even though cancer was already in our family and had taken so many loved ones. So I had my ovaries and tubes removed at age 43. I went through immediate menopause, along with severe hot flashes, night sweats. At age 43 with no hormones was quite a change. I had waves of emotions, getting upset at the smallest things. One example was I went to get a soda at Wendy's. I went through the drive-thru and they forgot to give me a straw. I sobbed hysterically. No straw, how could I drink my soda? I realized it was the hormones, my raging hormones, so I then started laughing hysterically at myself. For the next few years, I focused on my family, raising my children. Our family made a big move from Michigan to Atlanta. I had an incessant need to research cancer, not only for myself, but for my children, my whole family, and for all future generations. I wanted to be prepared for whatever came next. It was about at this time when I learned about FORCE. It's a nonprofit research and support organization. FORCE stands for Facing Our Risk of Breast Cancer, or of Cancer Empowered. I got on their mailing list and I read their research. They had the finest and most thorough research on the website that I could find about BRCA1 and 2. When I was 50 years old, my doctor in Atlanta, who was very proactive, she read my history and my chart. She recommended that it was time to get the preventative bilateral mastectomy, which basically means getting my 2 boobs cut off. So I quickly jumped on this, located a breast surgeon, a plastic surgeon. My manager approved it. I could get the time off work, so I had all of my breast tissue removed and a latissimus flap reconstruction. The muscle was taken from my back. Strike one. A few days after my surgery, I was recuperating. I was sitting at the table eating dinner with my husband and my son, and my doctor called and cheerfully said, "You made the right decision. We found breast cancer in that biopsy. It was stage 0, so you're off the hook now. You've dodged the bullet." No lymph nodes were involved. I was empowered. I felt in control. I took the actions needed to prevent myself from getting cancer, and I had success. And I liked my boobs, fake boobs. But the best part was, now there was only a minuscule chance of ever getting cancer again. I caught my cancer and had it removed before it barely started. 2 years passed by. My husband and I were kayaking in Charleston for our 25th wedding anniversary. I had some pain under my right arm, so I massaged it, and I found a lump. I had no reason to be worried. Everyone said it was probably scar tissue. After all, cancer doesn't normally hurt. But down deep, my fears started to creep back. Could it be cancer? No, it can't be cancer. I just had my annual MRI 3 months previously. It was all clear, and for God's sakes, I had no breast tissue left. Strike two. I returned from vacation, immediately saw my surgeon. She did a biopsy. It was cancer. My surgeon was not very hopeful or positive, stating that it had probably spread from my first cancer. I felt like someone knocked me around, threw me down, and jumped on me. I had all of the wind knocked out of me. I sobbed in fear and desperation while I drove home. I knew I needed something more to survive this, so I remembered where my sister had been treated at Cancer Treatment Center of America. They had a newly built location in Noonan, Georgia, which was near me, but they didn't have a breast oncologist at that time. They had just opened, so they flew me and one caretaker, my daughter, to Tulsa, Oklahoma for a consultation. I felt and knew it was the place for me when Norma, the receptionist, took me into her arms and would not let go the minute I walked in the door of the facility. She took me to my room. She pulled my suitcase, even though I was fine to pull it myself. Norma took care of me, as did every single other person I encountered at that location. Good news, Dr. Frame found a very small tumor under my arm when he actually did the surgery, but he did confirm it was a brand new cancer. So that was my second cancer, not related to the original cancer at all. Bad news, the cancer had spread into 9 of 49 lymph nodes, and I would need chemo and radiation. For the next several months, I flew to Tulsa every 3 weeks, returned home, followed by 2 days flat in bed, and then back to work. My team at Cancer Treatment Center helped cure me with their loving support, their faith-based treatment. Strike 3. In my last week of radiation, cancer snuck up on me again. I had a melanoma on my back, which for those of you who don't know, it's a deadly form of skin cancer. My dermatologist found it. It was very, very tiny. She caught it early. I completed my fight with 3 cancers in May 2013. A week or 2 later, though, sad news followed. My older brother, Andy, learned that he had stage 4 melanoma skin cancer. My fight for survival quickly changed into immediate support for Andy. We shared tips and stories. We cried with each other. We prayed with each other. Melanoma claimed my brother's Andy's life 13 months later, in May 2015. So by now, you must be thinking that I'm either the unluckiest person you ever met or the luckiest. Even after all of the preventative surgeries and things that I did, 3 primary cancers snuck up on me. I feel, though, like my story has just begun. You see, I am now a proud survivor. I'm not unlucky. I'm blessed, and I'm blessed that I have seized opportunities that would not have been afforded to me if I had not gone through this incredible journey. My second act as a survivor. I focus on work to feel normal. I took very little time off of my full-time job because I love my job, and I refused to accept that cancer would overtake me or stop me from living my life. I focused on giving back to my profession in a role that I had always wanted to do. I became president and am now finishing up my role as chairman of the board on a local chapter of a professional organization called ARMA. I get so much pleasure out of training and helping others to realize their potential. I focus on giving back to others dealing with cancer or the risk of hereditary cancer, raising awareness and empowering them. I learned that Atlanta Forest Organization had some openings. Excuse me. So I interviewed, I trained, and I became a forest group leader. We hold monthly support meetings, we hold informational booths at survivor conferences and events in the Atlanta area, and we reach out to others who are learning about their risk of hereditary cancer, and we even have personal one-on-ones with them. I also focus on giving back to the many angels and cancer warriors in my life, people close to me who I love so much. I try to help them as they helped me. I believe I am one of the luckiest people in the world. As Proverbs 3:3 says, "Don't count your days, make the days count." I value every day, every minute, every relationship, and every experience. Every morning I get up and I praise God for giving me another day. I'll never give up hope and never take for granted the joy of every minute of my life. I read that fear is bondage from Hebrews. Rather than being held in bondage by the fear of cancer or death, empowerment in action helps keep my fear at bay and frees me to explore and love and live. I am winning. Cancer is not.